are generational talent because we have different generations that follow us. Our goal was to be the World Tag Team Champions one time. We totally exceeded it.
What we're seeing in TNA are the OG Hardys.
That was very important to go through as the OG Hardys. In 2025, it's time to reinvent.
If Jeff wasn't your brother, everything you've done in your own would be wild.
Yeah, it would be. But Jeff is the epitome of what the Hardy Boys represent.
You returning to TNA, that was a moment.
Yeah, moments are everything. That's what I really try and focus on now.
There's no question the Hardy Boys are future Hall of Famers.
I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
Do you think about how much longer you can do this?
I'm just going to ride the spiral till it ends.
Matt, always good to see you.
Yeah, man. It's always good to be here with you, Chris.
And look, you're a champion this time around.
Champion again. Yeah, this is pretty cool, man. This marks 13 for Jeff and I.
Jeez, what a career.
Pretty good. We've had a pretty good career. You know, our goal in the beginning was to be the World Tag Team Champions one time. And if we did anything past that, we totally exceeded it. So we have exceeded it pretty good.
What does this one mean to you?
I think this particular title just shows that people need to get their tenses right. You know, a lot of people say in past tense, you know, the Hardys were great. But present tense is what they need to speak in, that the Hardys are great. You know, we had a couple years at AEW where people thought, oh my God, maybe these guys are done or they're finished, whatever. We came back to TNA and kudos to TNA for putting us in a position to succeed. And we rock and rolled as the original OG Hardy Boys, more or less, and then we ended up earning a tag team title shot, and we built to that Full Metal Mayhem at Bound for Glory, which was Full Metal Mayhem reimagined with all of Jeff's art on the tables and ladders and chairs and whatnot, and we earned these titles, and these mean a lot to us, and we're really happy to be back and be very prevalent again in our position.
What we're seeing in TNA right now are the OG Hardys, including what you guys are wearing. Are these the actual clothes you guys were wearing in the 90s?
Yes, mine are. Jeff, his pants were burnt whenever his house burned down, but mine are original. I still have 2 or 3 pairs of the originals left because they sponsored us when we first started doing it, and they would ship us tons of kickwear pants, yeah. And he found a couple of those shirts at our dad's just recently, and the shirts we wore at Final Resolution were some of our OG Hardy shirts too.
Isn't this so funny that the fashion just comes right back around full circle?
It's wild, yeah.
Like, so... kudos to you for hanging on to them, right?
Yeah. I'm big on that. I'm big on hanging on to stuff. It means a lot too. Like, you know, memorabilia. It's very important. I love to look back at that stuff and be reminded of a certain time, a certain feeling I had during that era. But you talked about the OG Hardys. That was very important for us to go through and win these titles as the OG Hardys. And now we're at the point. I think in 2025, one of the important things that the Hardys are going to do are start to evolve again. I think it's time to reinvent a little bit and go in a totally new direction. You're seeing little bits and pieces of that in some of the promos we've been doing recently.
And what does that look like?
I think it looks like the Hardy Boys once again have found success. The Hardy Boys are feeling good. They're physically feeling good. They're mentally and emotionally feeling pretty good about what they're doing. And, you know, they're going to understand and be able to comprehend and understand that they are these legends, you know, that people speak of, these icons that people speak of after doing this for 33 years and maybe even lean into that a little bit.
Did you get to a point in your career where you didn't think you'd be wrestling at this age? You didn't think you'd be wrestling in your 50s?
I didn't. I never really thought about it, I guess. My approach in life, I live every day like it's my last, but I am also living simultaneously living like I'm preparing myself to live to be 100 years old. You know, that's kind of my mindset, you know, because just life is so short. Life is so precious, you know, especially after those incidents with Jay Briscoe and then the thing with Bray Wyatt and Wyndham, you know, just them passing away like that so quickly and unexpectedly. You know, you never know, man.
Do you also feel like maybe you wrestle every match like it's your last match?
I think so. I think...
You guys leave it all out there.
I think we try to, especially when you realize you're kind of on that back end of your career and you really want to cement your legacy. I think you kick in and you work a little extra hard. So it was tough whenever we did the whole Final Resolution thing because we did the Fourth Rope show where we became the first champions, the first tag team champions of Fourth Rope, which is a project with West Side Gun. And we did a TLC match that night. So we did that, and then the next night it was a tables match where we went through tables and we went nuts, went crazy, and then we actually had a match the third night as well. So those are a little trickier to bounce back from when you're a little older. Like Jeff and I, we're big cold plunge guys. I know you're an advocate of the cold plunge.
Every day.
I think, that has added so much longevity to both of us, I think, physically and our careers.
As you sit here right now, what hurts?
I mean, my lower back, my hips, that's my biggest issue. And I miss not being at home, not doing the cold plunge because there was no bathtub in the hotel. So it was just like a little bit of a cold shower or whatever. But I mean, I get in that cold plunge every single day and I sit in there like 45 minutes and it's crazy the feeling that it gives you after sitting in that once you get out. It's so tough to get in. Sometimes you're like, I really don't want to get in there. Or
Isn't that funny?
It's hard, but then once you come out, it is just so you feel so good. It's such a high.
There's not a day where like my mind's not playing tricks on me.
Right.
Like, you can answer this email first, or you could eat first, or what. And standing out there with no shirt on, it's freezing outside. I'm like, I could go in later on.
Yeah.
It's amazing the like mental games your own brain is playing with you.
Of course, yeah. It's really a great way to find self-control too. You get in there and like you freak out and you kind of meditate and you get control of your body, you get control of your temperature, you get control of your mind.
Yeah.
And then like once you kind of focus and you find your chi in there, then you kind of get through it. And then once you get out, you have that amazing dopamine rush.
Yeah. And also if you can do something hard at the start of your day, then other things that day might not seem as difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great way to mentally and emotionally start the day.
How has so that's your recovery, but how have your workouts changed over the last decade or so?
My workouts have changed more where I'm doing a lot more cardio. I try and do hard cardio. I just make sure that's important. And I start with my cold plunge in the day and then I'm cold and then I warm up doing cardio, burn those calories. And I think that's like so your body burns calories so your metabolism speeds up as much as it possibly can when you're a little bit older or at an advanced stage like I am. And I do that, and then I usually do one body part, and then I implement some stretching and yoga in every day.
You could have gone anywhere after AEW. What made TNA the right fit?
It just worked out right because they offered me something just a couple days out with the Moose thing, doing a little program with Moose, and I went in initially on a handshake deal, and we said I'll work through against all odds, and we'll see what I end up doing by then, and if that ends up being the last day, then we have a match. He retains the title, and then I'll go wherever. And it turned out that Jeff's deal had expired at AEW one day before that, so it was crazy timing. And then he ended up showing up that day. It was a huge reaction, and Jeff said, "Man, I love what you've been doing, and it's been so cool. And like, I think we should have a run here. It seems like this is a really good spot for us. They would put us in a position to succeed, which they have." And we can help TNA because they've been hot this year. With Joe Hendry, they've had the NXT exchange, which has been great. And then they're really having a true resurgence, and we think we've helped add to that, which is very cool.
So the original idea was it was just going to be you. It was just going to be Matt Hardy and TNA.
Yeah.
And then we got this beautiful thing of the Hardys reuniting.
Right.
And look what it's turned into now.
Yeah.
So you were in a position in AEW where you were making a lot of other talent look good. Now you're in a position where you guys are the champion and you're also able to make other talent look good.
Yeah, I mean, it's once again, I can't compliment AEW enough for putting us in a position to succeed. And that's what's real important, especially with a legacy act like myself and Jeff. You know what I mean? We are guys who are still very beloved. We're like generational talent because we have different generations that like us and adore us and follow us. We have a very, very strong following, a very, very die-hardy following and fan base. And the fact that they have done that and they gave us opportunities. I mean, we don't need to go out there. The show doesn't need to be all about us. We don't need to be on every single week, but we can contribute to TNA, and they've done a great job in utilizing us.
What do you think it's been about the Hardy Boys that have allowed the audience to? You've endeared yourself to them. They love you guys, no matter where you are, whether you're wrestling independently, whether you're wrestling as a tag team. They love you. What is it?
I mean, I think there's a real authenticity to myself and Jeff. I mean, so many people said when we first burst on the scene back in WWE in 1999, when we got over, we were wearing the kickwear pants and the tight shirts. People said, like, these guys seem like regular guys. They seem like guys, if they weren't wrestlers, I'd be friends with them because they're just like cool guys. They've got this cool way they dress. They do crazy things. They like, they're just fun. I would be friends with them. And I think people look at us and go, like, if these smaller guys can achieve superstardom and make their dreams come true, then hey, maybe I can too. because I think it's inspirational, because we seem like something that is very attainable. And I still think people look at us and they see everything we have overcome, and they've seen us do all these things, especially Jeff. Jeff is an anomaly, that he has destroyed his body for 33 years doing all these crazy stunts and maneuvers and table breaks and ladder falls and everything else. If these guys can still if they can take a lick and keep kicking like they're doing right now, then maybe I can too. I think it's motivational. I think it's inspirational.
So I know that most of the time you see me wearing t-shirts during these interviews. I guess it's kind of become like my uniform. But sometimes I dress it up, like that interview I did with Dave Bautista. And I love how with Roan's commuter collection, you can look professional, but their stuff performs like activewear. And the most important thing, it keeps you comfortable. Roan has premium pieces to elevate every occasion. We're talking about the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, polos, and blazers, all boosted with functional performance properties. The commuter collection also features wrinkle release technology, and it's 100% machine washable, which means no trips to the dry cleaner. It's also treated with Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, which means more wears between washes. So if you're looking to get dressed up, whether that's for work or a night out or maybe even a wedding, the commuter collection has you covered, and we've got you covered with 20% off when you go to roan.com/CVV. That's roan.com/CVV for 20% off your entire order. When you talk about Jeff having all those great spots, you've had a ton of them yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we have, and I have too. I look in the mirror every morning, and I'm still like very grateful that I'm able to walk, and move like a normal man. I'm beat up a little bit, but once again, we swear by those ice baths, those cold plunges. They're super beneficial, and I felt great since I've been doing them, and I've been doing them for over a year now.
Like if Jeff wasn't your brother raising the bar of these crazy antics, these crazy stunts, everything you've done on your own would be just absolutely wild.
Yeah, no, it would be. It's crazy because I can do that stuff good, but Jeff is the epitome of what the Hardy Boys represented. That's why I was so happy whenever I got the chance to kind of break away from him and do Matt Hardy version 1, the Sensei of Magnitude. Because whenever I'm playing an over-the-top, almost delusional character, larger than life, that's where I really shine.
How many different versions of you have there been? Can we go through all the gimmicks, start to right now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you initially had me doing independent stuff as a high voltage.
This, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Every tick of the clock grows near your shock. That came from that commercial. It was like a snare commercial.
Yes. Yes.
And that's where I got that from. And this was...
It's like the Ferris Bueller song.
Yes. And this was like lightning. That was kind of like my thing. It was like a lightning bolt. And then eventually high voltage, we sent in demo tapes to WCW. And then they took the name. I know I have actual knowledge that they utilized my name and then took it and gave it to the tag team of high voltage. And then I changed my name to Surge just to kind of get a new name.
Sounds like an energy drink.
Yeah, you're right. And then once we came to WWE, obviously we were Mad Jeff Hardy.
Also in an era when people weren't using their real names.
Yes. Well, we got lucky because we were enhancement talent, starting in 1994. And they, we went by our real names, Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy. And they said, oh, if we team them up, let's call them the Hardy Boys. It's catchy because it sounds like the old detective books, right? And just lo and behold, because we kind of made our name there and people got used to calling us that, by our real names, we were able to keep our real names whenever we started with WWE, which was truly a blessing.
Did WWE have to add a Z to the end for was that a copyright thing?
They added a Z so it would be theirs, I think. That was specifically why they did it. So they do, people ask like, oh yeah, Hardy Boys, can you use that? I mean, Hardy Boys is a WWE property, especially with a Z. And I would guess the Dudley Boys are too. Sure. They put their own spin on it so they can own it.
But now it's the Hardys when you're in TNA.
Yeah, the Hardys is what we go by, and it's still wild that we still call ourselves Hardy Boys, but it does have a better ring to it than Hardy Men.
The Hardy Men.
So after we started doing that, there was a point where we were with Michael Hayes. Obviously, we got a little more serious, a little more brooding, and then we actually did join a brood with Gangrel that we did. As we went forward, we were still doing Hardy Boy stuff.
How badass was that entrance?
It was the best. That entrance was the coolest, especially every time you would ride up. Sometimes if they didn't have the space to do it or they didn't have the stage to do it, they would just like light a fire and we would like run and stand in it and then walk out or whatever. But whenever you would come up and go through the stage with that music, it is one of the most exhilarating entrances ever. It was so great.
That theme song was so cool,
Yeah,
too.
it was such a banger, as the kids say.
Such a banger. Where does it go from there?
And then you eventually split up the Hardys, and then you have Matt Hardy become version 1, the true version 1 of himself, where he's not this Hardy. Oh, yeah, the Sensei of Mattitude. We start doing that. I come back in 2005 after my knee surgery as Matt Hardy, and it's kind of like the Will Not Die version, more or less. Once I get into the version where I turn on Jeff at Royal Rumble, and we end up going to WrestleMania 25 and having that Extreme Rules match, I'm Cold Blood Matt Hardy. I come to TNA. I was the Black Cloud is kind of what I was going by. That never got over huge, though, because then like Jeff was leaving and they wanted to turn me back babyface. I come to TNA 2011. I was Cold-blooded Matt Hardy, Cold Blood Matt Hardy.
Can we talk about the hair you had when you debuted in TNA?
Yeah.
What was the idea behind that?
Just want to do something different. And if I'd been in a better place mentally, I think I could have made that into something special too. I was burnt out on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I needed to take some time off and go away for a little bit and get my shit together. The idea with the hair is obviously reinventing, trying to do something different, trying to be, seem like a new version of Matt Hardy, whatever it may be. I end up going to Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor, I'm doing big money Matt Hardy now. We're kind of leaning into my history and how big of a star I am and how much TV exposure I've had and how much money I've made from it and whatnot. Then you have me come back and I rejoin Jeff in TNA as the original Hardys. And we do that up to an extent where Jeff has gone away. I end up winning the title as Big Money Matt, do a double turn with EC3. And then once that ends, we segue into Broken Matt Hardy and Jeff becomes Brother Nero, which is really interesting. Funnest year of my career by far. We come back to WWE, WrestleMania 33. I'm doing like this kind of like a morphed character. I feel like I'm still trying to retain the Broken Matt Hardy identity, but we were playing regular Hardy Boys.
And you talk about it like it's not the greatest return of all time. Oh, WrestleMania 33, no big deal.
Yeah. It was amazing. One of those things, we are so grateful to have had that moment. Like we really kept it to a very small circle of people that knew about it. So there were some people that speculated it may happen, may not happen, but it did. And it's crazy because at TNA, after we'd done all the Broken Matt Hardy stuff, the Broken Universe, Brother Nero, just the tens of thousands of people in there going, delete, 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 how we had gotten that over and established it. And it was, all over the wrestling industry. It was so cool.
Did you feel that wave from the audience? Like, did you feel that rush of energy from them?
Yeah. It was a very surreal moment. Looking back, it's still, whenever I picture it, a lot of times I have vivid memories in my head of something that, has an event linked to it that you really have a vivid memory and it's very crisp. This one is weird. It's almost like there's static around the outside of it because it's like surreal. It almost felt like a dream because it was just so chaotic. And we walked out like we hadn't been in that venue.
And that was a long ramp.
We literally had got there and we ran up right before we were going out. They were doing all they could to keep it quiet all the way up to the moment we walked through the curtain. And then once we stepped out, we saw that massive crowd and just the sea of humanity, delete, and all the excitement, people going nuts. And I see it's kind of in slow motion, it's blurry around the edges because it was so surreal. It was very like dreamlike in many ways. But what an amazing moment. We're both so grateful that we had. Then you get that. I leave WWE. I end up doing a little Broken Matt Hardy and then Big Money Matt again and then back to the Hardy Boys. And then we came to TNA and we won the titles kind of as the OG throwback to the original Hardy Boys.
Do you think about how much longer you can do this?
I think I'm just going to ride the spiral till it ends. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna ride the spiral till it ends. I think in the past I'm just gonna see how I feel and just roll with it. I try not to think too far ahead. I try not to overwhelm myself. I'm more of a day by day person. I just try and get through every single day and make it as good as possible.
Is there also the idea that you could continue on without Jeff or vice versa, Jeff continues on without you? Or do you think that when you guys are done, you're going out together, the Hardy Boys are done together?
Probably. I would imagine it would probably go out that way. We came in that way, we would probably go out that way. And then, for Jeff, I could see him, he'll end up being an artist living in Cameron, North Carolina, whatever he's doing. I think I'm a lifer in the business. I'll be working somewhere in as a producer or an agent or creative or whatever else, just because I'm so passionate about pro wrestling. I think once I stopped being an in-ring performer, I will still contribute.
The magic you made as Broken Matt was just, it was so special.
Thank you.
Did you realize that like from the very beginning that you had lightning in a bottle?
Whenever the contract signing aired, and it was a very polarizing segment because we wanted to shoot things a different way. We wanted to look very different. We wanted to be weird and strange because this character was supposed to be weird and strange. And I knew when we got such a polarizing reaction to that segment, some people thought like, it's the most amazing thing. This is a throwback to old school 80s wrestling and the larger than life characters. And other people said like, this is the worst shit I've ever seen. You know, but I knew the polarizing reaction meant we were on to something because we struck a nerve, right? And then once we did the final deletion, there was a little mixed feedback in the beginning. And then people said, oh, okay, I get what they're doing now. Like they're kind of, you know, they're doing something and they're kind of letting you in on the act to a degree, because there's times where we would break, you know, the fourth wall. And there's times where we would do things unique that were only for inside fans, you know, and whatnot. We would try and produce stuff. JB, Jeremy Borash, was so good at this. That would totally be memeable as Broken Matt, or would be a GIF, whatever. And like people were sending like, you know, delete memes and GIFs back and forth to one another. And it was pretty amazing. I knew after the final deletion happened and we got some momentum rolling following that we had really tapped into something special.
Big credit to TNA for allowing you to run with that too.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it was polarizing at first. Like, and they could have said, I don't know, we're going to lean in. This doesn't seem like it's going to work.
Yeah. They totally could have said like, this isn't worth taking the risk.
Yeah. And they let you go with it.
Yeah. I mean, once again, it was a risk. They were very nervous. I'll never forget. We sent a final copy, and we did this intentionally. JB edited the final deletion, and he sent it to John Gabbard, and we were going to clear it for TV. And he did it like last second, so like it kind of had to be sent in to go to TV and be on air, whatever.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I watched this back, and some people told me, he said, you know, only a wild man would let this go on TV. He said, I guess you can call me the wild man from here on out.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, Dixie texted me that morning or that afternoon before final deletion. She said, I'm so nervous about tonight. I hope everything goes good. And it did like a record high number on the channel it was on, and there were so many people seeking it out and the DVRs and trying to record it, whatever else. And then it was like viral online, right?
Yeah.
In so many ways. So it was, man. I mean, pro wrestling in many ways, especially if you're talking about creating a new genre or new character, or new persona, is a risk. But I mean, in the big scheme of things, isn't that what life is? It's a risk, right?
Well, that's certainly what your life and your career has been about. A lot of risks.
You know, I mean, it's just like, you know, you take a risk when you want to start getting into the podcasting business. We were just talking about that. You had a very successful one for a long time. You know, mine just turned 3 years old and going into
Congrats
the
on
fourth year.
that.
Thank
you and John are crushing it.
You know, so it's you have to take risk. You know, and I think we tried to take a calculated risk, and they bet on us, and it paid off.
They say that first impressions are important, but what about lasting impressions? That, my friends, is where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew helps boost your confidence in the bedroom so you can perform at your very best. Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in chewable form. The process is so simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And the best part about it is it's all done online. So that means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. So discover your options at BlueChew.com, and they've got a special deal going on for you right now. Try Blue Chew for free. You just have to pay $5 for shipping at checkout when you go to BlueChew.com. That's right. Try Blue Chew for free by going to BlueChew.com. All of the details and the safety information is up there on the website. That's BlueChew.com. And a big shout out to Blue Chew for always supporting the channel.
I think that you guys created a whole new genre there. If it wasn't for the success of the final deletion, they'd be scrambling during the pandemic era to figure out what to do.
Yeah, and that is cool because, you know, they've had some versions of these cinematic matches before in the past, but nothing had ever been done quite like ours was. And it kind of was the blueprint for what people would do when they were in a pinch during the pandemic, which was cool.
And it's only because it worked so well in TNA.
Right.
Like Final Deletion worked so well that they went, oh, that's a card we can play.
Yeah.
Because we know it's going to work.
Right.
If it wasn't for you guys taking that chance, taking that risk, a real argument can be made that pandemic wrestling might have looked a little different.
Yeah, I mean that is true, and I take a lot of pride in that too.
Is there something from that era that you're most proud of?
One of the things I am most proud of is that a lot of times if we were shooting as opposed to going to work in Orlando, I just did all my work at home. That was great to be working at home, right out the back door, and start shooting fireworks at people.
How were you kind of testing the waters and figuring out what would work as Broken Matt and TNA?
It was really trial and error. The final deletion taught us a lot. After we did that, it was a really unique experience, and we did that with only 4 people on the production side. It was me, Jeff, and my wife was in it, my oldest kid, Maxwell, was in it, Senior Benjamin, my father-in-law, he was in it. But we were running and gunning, and we shot it over the course of the night. But we learned so much from doing that. I feel like it got even stronger and better when we were doing Deleter Decay. We told a great story in there about Jeff, sacrificing himself for me to save me. And that's kind of what ended up bonding us, because it was one of those things part of the reason I became Broken Matt in the beginning was I said he was being selfish. We'd won the tag team titles, and he's out riding a motorcycle and breaks his leg. And finally he did something that I viewed as selfless. And then we bonded back together, and I took him into the lake and healed him and whatnot. And he kind of became a half-assed magical character too, which is cool. But it's one of those things where you would see these are the things that people like. Like, for instance, I knew people loved it. When I first spoke like this, I didn't tell anyone I was going to start speaking in this weird combination of British with a British tone and Jamaican tone, whatever, just the whole combination. It was just something I was kind of figuring out as I went. But something we learned is people love when I say words crazy, and then when I say them over and over again, because they almost want to sing along with me. They want to say it with me. Yeah. So whenever I'd say premonition, you know what I mean? We knew that was something people loved with Broken Matt. And I would try and look up archaic words that I could use for something very normal. I tried to make that character so super different and stand out in that way. And that's something, a character who is cognizant of his soul that is 2,000 years old, I think he would probably use some archaic words. What
are the words that fans say to you guys at signings?
I mean, every day I hear this. Yes, it will be wonderful. Wonderful is definitely the most popular Broken Matt word, no doubt. And people delete. Of course, yeah. Delete is always there, and I mean that will be a staple of my career now, regardless of what persona I'm portraying, because it's just so associated with me, right?
I've always loved yes.
Yeah. I mean, yes. It's so funny because I don't normally throw yes in there. Sometimes I do my podcast and I get real frustrated because I'm bad at throwing in I'll use that word over and over. Stop using that. And it's a work in progress. As you do it more, you kind of get more cognizant of it, right? And I would never throw yes in total conversations, but if I revert to Broken Matt, that yes pops up so naturally and it just comes in there, and it's just it's the filler. Whenever you're getting to your next thing, if you need a moment to think or whatever, yes, it fits so perfectly.
How did you come up with that laugh?
Just once again, trying to be different, trying to be something that was over the top. We
Did you test other laughs?
We did. We tried some stuff, and I think part of the charm of the whole Broken universe was that it was campy. And we kind of wanted it to be campy, and we wanted to kind of let people in on the joke in some ways. And that's what it took. Once people started figuring that out, that it's okay. You can laugh with this because this isn't meant to be super serious. We had a couple serious moments here and there, whenever Jeff sacrificed himself for me in Deleter Decay. But I think the whole point of that was to have fun. It was a fun character. It was a fun guy who says crazy things. And I was thinking about that. One of the reasons I ended up offering to do this deal, Jeff's got a very funny story. He says, yeah, Matt came up to me and said, I want you to do a real big swanton on me, hurt me real bad, and I'm going to go crazy. And I'm going to go crazy for him. Put a blonde streak in my hair, and I've got some ideas. And he said, yeah, he just told me that. I said, I had no idea kind of the big picture of what he ultimately wanted to end up doing.
What was the genesis of that? Where'd you even get the concept for that?
The concept from Broken Matt, well, there were so many young guys doing these amazing matches, doing all these crazy athletic, acrobatic moves and stuff. That's when really the business, the work rate was picking up more and more and more. I said, everybody's doing this. I said, let me lean into something I feel like I'd be better at. An over the top, maybe half-assed delusional character, this is larger than life, and I could do it. And maybe even tap into like the old school wrestling when you had like Papa Shango or when you had Undertaker and he was more magical.
Like really character based.
Let me see if I can get into something like that and get it over. I said, worst case scenario, I'll seem like I'm crazy, and then maybe even people will buy that I'm like some sort of supernatural character. Something has happened to me after my brain was broken, and I became cognizant of where my essence or my soul has been over all these years. And I think the reason I really came up with that was because of True Blood. My wife and I, we'd been watching it. I was a big TV series person after I took time away from WWE initially. And I'd watch like True Detective, which season 1 was just incredible. Dexter, still a huge Dexter fan, watching the new stuff right now. And True Blood. And I thought the vampire stuff was so cool. I was such a big fan of Alexander Skarsgård, how you see him in these different eras, how he has different clothes on, he has different haircuts, different styles, and just how much stuff changes through time. I said, that'd be so amazing if you could do an immortal gimmick. I said, obviously, we're all mortal, right? You can't really truly do an immortal gimmick when it comes to that. I said, but what if I could be aware of where my soul has been, like the different bodies it's been in? Like once it leaves one body, then it goes to another. And I could say I've been all these people, and I could say in theory, I'm 2,000 years old, if I'm aware of where my soul has been. And that was pretty much the building blocks of Broken Matt Hardy.
And you never broke character.
Yeah. I mean, that was something that I was very dead serious about, to keep consistency, because I wanted people to think if I had lost my mind and I was going crazy, that he is going crazy. Because like as soon as you step out of that and show people that you're normal and that you're a regular guy who can, articulate and speak normal and you're okay, then it's obviously a character that is, not really you. I remember I was hot. They were trying to get me. I was hot as far as like business going. People were buying merch and they wanted to see Broken Matt and they wanted to see Brother Nero. They wanted to see the Broken Universe stuff. And they asked me to do media for something, and they were going to have me do the Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer. And they said, yeah, we're going to do this, but we would like you to, go on, talk to him a little bit about promote this event. This was with TNA. I said, well, I'll go on, but I'm not breaking character. I said, I'm going to talk about being 2,000 years old. I don't give a shit about work rates or 5-star match or whatever else. I said, I'm Broken Matt Hardy through and through, and that's where they're going to get that jargon. and I did. I really stuck to the gimmick. I did a podcast with Chris Jericho and did it for an hour.
Was that hard?
No. I mean, I was so locked into it. Like once I would commit to that bit and commit to the role, it was pretty easy. I was pretty good at it.
I did an interview with you and Jeff in 2016. It was actually the day before you guys returned to WrestleMania 33.
Oh, yeah. At Ring of Honor?
Ring of Honor. Yep. And you were in full character. You were telling me how old my soul was.
Yeah.
How many vessels that I had been in.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And Jeff's next to you, like just kind of like playing along, like, yeah, man, this is what he does.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was, man. That was the year of doing Broken Matt in TNA from when I started, when Jeff jumped off the top of the impact zone and put me through that table. And then we started the whole deal all the way through WrestleMania. That year, that was the funnest year of my career, by far. Nothing even compares to it.
If Broken Matt was so much fun, is that something you want to revisit now in TNA?
Well, as I said before, I think Jeff and I think we want to reinvent and we want to do something new and fresh. And, there's going to be hints of Broken Matt. Broken Matt is now, it is part of me, and it always will be part of me, So there will be some Broken Matt in whatever identity I use going forward. But I think we can do something very special going forward that maybe we have transcended. We have transcended pro wrestling superstars. We're something bigger, and we're these angelic figures who want to put TNA on its back and bring it back to prevalence. And I think we could be filling ourselves a little bit, filling ourselves a little too much after having this long, legendary title reign.
Hardy Boyz heel turn, okay.
Maybe so. We could see. And I could see it being a big babyface thing, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's hard to boo you guys.
Yeah.
It's very hard to boo you guys after all this time. How do you know when it's time to move on from a gimmick?
I mean, you can feel it in the audience just when things are getting stale. Just I knew whenever I was back in TNA And I was doing things. Jeff and I reunited. It was real hot for the first little thing we were doing, kind of like OG Hardy Boys. I was doing a lot of the Matt Hardy Will Not Die stuff. But then once Jeff got hurt, and I started doing some stuff with EC3, and I volunteered, said, hey, this guy's going to be kind of the face of the company. We're trying to build him, and he just won the title from Kurt Angle. I said, let me work against him. I said, we can have a couple matches, and maybe we can build to a ladder match, and I can put him over, and we can try and put him on the map and make him into a bigger deal for TNA. And as we were doing that, that's where it ended up that I was going to win the title. They kind of changed that last second. We happened to be in North Carolina for this Bound for Glory we're having. And that was an amazing moment at Bound for Glory 2015, where it was myself, EC3, and Drew McIntyre. My brother was the referee. He was coming back from a broken leg. And at the end of the night, I'd won the title. My wife, my newborn son, Maxwell, and our dad all came in the ring, and we celebrated in North Carolina. That was a really, really special moment that I dug so much. But I also knew at that time that people were like, okay, well, it's the Hardy Boys. We've kind of seen it before. I knew I had to do something different. And that's right where I decided to continue working with EC3 and do that double turn and go back to being Big Money Matt and really hit it hard. Initially, I was going to do the iconic Matt Hardy and do a new version of Big Money Matt, but Big Money Matt ended up still kind of coming into play as well.
It's just so interesting that they've all had success, because you look at a lot of people in this business and they will stick to one character. There's a lot of legends have one character their entire career.
Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you look at those guys.
Yeah, and they play the greatest hits, and it works. Yeah. And I guess you guys could do that, but it's interesting that in reinventing yourselves, you've been able to have even more success.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important. I mean, once again, I was talking about, series television and whatnot. If you have Breaking Bad was 5 seasons. In theory, the 5th season was very long, almost 6 seasons, right? Mm. But you can only write for these characters without being repetitive for so long, right? And that's why they wrap up these shows, and it becomes really good, especially if the character doesn't become repetitive or do stuff over.
Yeah, before they jump the shark.
Yeah, before they jump the shark. But in pro wrestling, we've been doing this for 33 years, and once you've been doing it for 3 decades, and a year is longer than a season, obviously. I mean, you have to change things up and freshen things up so that people have something new, so you don't become repetitive, so you don't become boring over and over. And that's what I think the whole art of reinvention is all about.
I think you had some of the greatest spots of your career as Broken Matt in TNA.
Yeah.
You boxed a kangaroo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jeff and I did, and that was one of the most terrifying things. People don't realize how scary that was. They would tell us, too. They would say, look, you guys can play with this kangaroo a little bit. You just can't hit it. It can hit you. But these guys, they're a little older, and they're not as excitable as a young kangaroo would be. But still, be very careful.
That kangaroo was jacked.
Oh, yeah. No, it was terrifying. The very first time we were doing it, I said, okay, I'll get out there and I'll spar with him a little bit, just show you with Jeff. And I think it was so intimidating. We were actually shooting, and we were down. I said, okay, yes, here we go. I said, let's go smoking, Joe Frazier. And I go, Brother Nero, I would like to allow you to go first. And Jeff was always like, what? And that's kind of how that all started.
There's a possibility of getting really hurt there.
Oh, there is. And also, too, they had very sharp fingernails too, if they would scratch you a little bit. There was a couple times I got my arms cut up a little bit. It was always, you never knew what you were going to get whenever you were battling those kangaroos. It was fun. It made for great content, right? Made for great TV, but you never knew what you were going to get.
There's a look on the kangaroo's face where he's like, what am I getting? What's happening?
Yeah.
What are you guys doing?
For sure.
I guess I'll not kill you, but I gave you a lot of credit for doing that.
Yeah, that was those were wild times for sure.
There's another big moment as Broken Matt where it's the side effect off the apron through that kitchen table looking thing on the outside.
Yeah.
That looked so painful.
That was in that contract signing. And we dug this table up. We found this table because it was the complete opposite of a table you would see broken in pro wrestling. And that we specifically wanted that table so everything looked so different. I remember there's also a thing when JB was doing it where I'm in the ring, I want him to sign the contract. He storms into the ring and I roll out. We did a couple takes on that and I rolled out smoothly. And we did one where I got, kind of caught in the ropes a little bit. And I told JB, he's like, oh, hey, well, we used one of these first two. He said, no, use the one where I get caught in the ropes. I think that even adds more intrigue to it. They're like, this is, we don't want to take ourselves too serious here, And then we ended up doing that thing going through the table and it was crazy. Jeff took an amazing bump with that, ended up being okay.
That table just thuds when you hit it.
Yeah.
There was no give.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Is that one of the scarier spots you've done?
It was definitely creepy. We took an axe and chopped the top of that table so the top would break off. We wanted to make sure. I don't think it would have if we hadn't have done that, because it was one of those like old school, like they don't make them like they used to tables.
Big thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this episode and for always supporting the channel. I don't use the internet anywhere without NordVPN. I mean, you've got a lock on your door. You should protect yourself when you're online too. Public Wi-Fi is notorious for being a spot where hackers like to hang out to try to steal your data. NordVPN protects you on there, and I love how easy it is to use, whether that's on your phone, your tablet, or your laptop. And you can change your virtual location with just one click and access content that's not available where you live. You can also use it to get pay-per-views for a fraction of the cost. So head to nordvpn.com/CVV to get yourself protected and to save yourself some money. Look at this deal they have going on right now. Less than $3 a month will get you covered, and you get 4 extra months for free. That's nordvpn.com/CVV. nordvpn.com/CVV.
What's your relationship like with fear?
I don't know. I life's too short to be afraid in many ways. I guess I know I'm a father. I have people that depend on me. I have a family that depends on me to take care of them. So like, I try and calculate my risk, I guess, as far as that goes. Like when people talk about like going through a table or whatever, I don't think Jeff and I even think twice about it. You know, like
Even still,
I don't think so. If it's something we feel confident about, if there's something that I feel like there's too big of a risk, you know, once again, calculated risk is what it's all about. Then I don't want to do it. You know, I'll do something else. I'll do something that I feel comfortable with or feel safe about. But as far as like being afraid, like there's not a ton of fear. I mean, if there's something I end up not doing, it's probably because I just don't want to take the calculated risk of possibly getting hurt because there's people that depend on me in my real life.
have you been more afraid to give a move or to take a move?
Yeah, I would say it would be take a move. I mean, if I'm giving something, I feel pretty confident about it. I feel pretty confident
You're in the driver's
with
seat.
what I do. Yeah, I'm kind of in control. You know, sometimes if someone has you and they're doing something that you really have no power over, that's a little more intimidating.
Are you like, is it often a move where you're up on someone's shoulders, or is it when you're laying there and Jeff is climbing something tall to jump onto you?
Right. Yeah, I mean, both of those, I would say. I mean, it's probably the scariest thing is if someone is picking you up and you could be dropped on your neck or head. That's probably the thing I would be most concerned about more than anything else.
Congrats on 3 years on the podcast.
Thank you.
So the extreme life
Thanks.
of Matt Hardy. You and John Alba are knocking it out of the park with this.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been great. It's just slowly been growing each and every week, and it's cool because we've built a pretty loyal fan base.
Well, the thing about podcasting, as you know, is you just got to keep showing up.
Yeah.
You know, you just got to keep showing up, got to keep putting it out there.
Yep.
And then the fans will also keep showing up.
Right.
John kind of set you up for a possible WWE return this year, it feels like.
That was actually one of his bold predictions. The Hardys will wrestle a match in WWE before the year's over.
How do you feel about that?
I feel good about that. I mean, that's one of the great things about working with TNA now. You know, they know that we do have a lot of love for WWE. They know that we would like to one day do the Hall of Fame. We filmed some content from WWE that'll probably be dropping pretty soon. I saw the Dudleys did it the day before us, and I know theirs just dropped recently. But we have a good working relationship with them, and I think, you know, if the perfect storm arose, I think you could see us pop up even as TNA champs on some WWE show at some point. You know, who knows?
The Royal Rumble's right around the corner.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity there for a version of you to show up.
Sure.
Maybe at another point in the match,
Yeah.
Jeff to show up as well, wearing these championship titles.
Yeah, I mean, it's their relationship is very good. It's very good for business. The very positive WWE / NXT TNA relationship is very good for business.
And it goes both ways as well.
It does.
You know,
It
and that's
really
been
does.
really fun to see.
I mean, if a TNA star goes and shows up on NXT, they seem like a bigger star. You know, it's a great star building moment for them. And with that same thing being said, TNA is a company that has been around now for over 2 decades. And if you send an NXT talent to TNA, they seem like a bigger star for being there too.
In 2016 in TNA, you teamed up with a young Will Ospreay. Do you remember this? Mm-hmm. Tag team matches, Matt Hardy, Will Ospreay versus James Storm, and at the time, Eli Drake.
Yeah.
What were your impressions of Will Ospreay at that time?
I had seen him, some of his stuff from England earlier, just super impressive. He's just an incredible athlete. It's amazing. His athleticism and his ability to do things and do things so with such explosion and so crisp is incredible.
What did winning the TNA Championship the first time mean? And then what did it mean when you won the second time?
The first time was real meaningful because it was in North Carolina, because my family was there, because my dad got to come in there and celebrate that moment. That was very cool. Obviously Jeff had been the TNA champion before, so it was cool to also be doing that so that we had both won it. And the second time was something that proved, like that double turn I did with EC3. It was so successful, and I think that is the most underrated match of my career in many ways. That match where we do a double turn in a Falls Count Anywhere match. That just showed that I was on the right pulse as far as where I was going. Like, it's time to freshen up, do something different, maybe be a heel. And obviously, if that doesn't happen, that doesn't lead to broken Matt Hardy, doesn't happen too. So that kind of became the whole story of me turning heel, winning the title, my brother confronting me and asking me what am I doing, and that leads to us feuding once again. That is what opened up the door to do broken Matt Hardy. And I can't imagine my career now without that period of the broken universe, because it was just so instrumental in so many things.
Do you think at some point you'd want to have another singles run? Maybe be a 3-time TNA champion?
Maybe. I mean, never say never. I think it's very important to Jeff and I to really cement our legacy as one of the best teams to ever do this.
That legacy was cemented a long time ago.
Yeah, but we want to keep adding to it.
How many more of these do you want to win?
I don't know. I'd like to have more than the Dudleys. Just so they can't say they're the most decorated tag team of all time.
How many do they have?
I don't know the exact number, but they racked them up whenever they were doing ECW, right?
Sure.
So it's someone had just said earlier today when we were doing promotion, or yesterday, I said that I want to introduce you to the most influential tag team of all time, and that's a pretty correct term. I get that, and they were even saying not even just for pro wrestling, but for different cultures and whatnot, which is so cool. And then we've also been introduced as the most popular tag team, so we're in there.
Those are hard to argue against,
and that's cool. We're very grateful for that. But it's so funny because that's always what Bubba and Devon threw out there, the most decorated tag team, and they still got us there. They've got 20 titles or something along those lines.
But when you talk about most influential, think of all of the people over the last 20 years that wrestle the style that they wrestle because they saw the Hardy Boys do it in the 90s.
Yeah, no, I mean, the influential is something I really like, because that does ring true.
Was there ever a point early on when someone in WWE said, you guys shouldn't wrestle that way, that's a little too unsafe?
No, we never really got that. It was, we did that first ever tag team ladder match, and they really gave us permission to kind of go out there and paint our own picture, make our own
That was
music.
No Mercy, right?
Yeah, there was No Mercy 99. And following that, it kind of became like this snowball that started rolling down the mountain and got bigger and stronger and faster. Then that went to the first ever tag team tables match at Royal Rumble 2000 versus the Dudleys. And then that leads to the triple threat triangle ladder match, which in essence was the first TLC at WrestleMania 2000.
But when that snowball is rolling down the hill like you're talking about, and you're gaining more momentum, and you're trying to always outdo that last match,
right?
You get to a point now, 30 years in, where you go, well, how can I outdo all this other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's also one of the things that I am critical about. I remember hearing this from Stone Cold Steve Austin. We were on a flight. We were coming back from Europe, and he said, I think that the album was the Re-Education of Lauryn Hill. Do you know that, right?
Uh-huh.
And he said, that album, the Re-Education of Lauryn Hill. He said, we need to do that with wrestling fans too. He said, they've raised the bar so high that you can't go any further. It's the characters are paramount, the stories, the angle. I mean, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. The match is just a match. And I do believe that. I'm a huge advocate for that now. I mean, if you like great wrestling, awesome. But the most important thing in the entertainment business of pro wrestling is the story and the character. And those are things you can always change. You can do things new. You're not going to be able to top yourself over and over in wrestling. Like human beings, how much can the human body absorb, and still end up being healthy when it's all said and done?
I mean, you are the living, breathing answer of that.
Yeah, I guess we are. Yeah. And it's one of those things. I wish I would have had this mindset back when I was doing house shows in the early 1999, in 1999, 2000, 2001, whenever nothing hurt, and we would go out there and kill ourselves every night, beat ourselves up every night, and then bounce right back. Just that character work is so instrumental. It is so important, so paramount, and I'll never forget that. And I still think in a lot of different areas in pro wrestling, there are people that get, I don't know if it's the sickos or whatever Tony calls them. You get so into the wrestling, right? And they want to see these 5-star matches and the work rate, and these guys go nuts and kill beat each other up and take all these crazy bumps, whatever. And I'm all for that. I do. I love a great wrestling match. When you can do all that stuff, that's amazing. You go out and do it. But like at the end of the day, the most important thing is like your character work and the story that's going on. That's where people become invested, and that's when your product grows, and that's when you have people that might not be diehard wrestling fans, but something catches them, like a broken Matt Hardy or like a Stone Cold Steve Austin or like a Rock or, whoever it may be. And they're like, wow, this guy's, this is really special. I dig what this guy's doing. I want to tune in next week to see what he's doing.
How did you know when it was time to step away for a little bit from wrestling and kind of recenter yourself?
I just knew when my body was so beat up and I had worked so hard through 2010, and at one point, they just said, oh, well, I said, I heard, can I have some time off? I said, oh, well, you're one of the guys we depend on. We'll leave you on the road. And I said, we'll just go, to the doctor, see what they can do. And all doctors do is like write your prescription for pills, and that's kind of where that happened. But once I started going down that very slippery slope, that's where I said, okay, I've got to take some time away. I've got to get myself together and make things work the right way.
And then you came back really better than ever from there.
I feel like, whenever I came back, I was a lot smarter, for sure. And wrestling is kind of a cruel business. Like when you're young and you're athletic and you can do everything under the sun, you'll go out there and do it. And you don't think about the character work. You don't think about, really building a strong persona and telling strong stories necessarily with your character and like whatever the arc is and the story that you're working against your rival until you get hurt and beat up real bad. And you're like, God, I got to tell more of a story. I've got to be more of a character. And then that's when you start doing it, but then you can't physically do everything that you could when you were younger. So it's a real twisted business in that way. Kind of cursed.
I don't feel like there's not a lot you can't do anymore, though.
I mean,
the only thing you told me you don't do is the leg drop.
Yeah, I don't do that. I mean, I used to do 450s back in the day. I could even still do those actively when we were in WWE, like 99, 2000, whatever, and I didn't really do them a lot because, it was so hard on my knees. And now just I have so much scar tissue in my body and just, I do some yoga, I do stretching to try and stay as limber as possible. I can still do a lot of the basic stuff that I do, obviously, that I have done. It's just I have to be real careful whenever if something is going to land on my lower back or spine because my hips and lower back and that stuff is so tight, and I just have to protect that stuff when I'm working. Work very smart.
People talk a lot about how moments are so massive in wrestling, right? People remember moments. And sure, that can be jumping off of a cage or jumping off of a ladder, but it can also be a great return. Mm-hmm. And you returning to TNA, that was a moment.
Yeah, it was. We had a lot of great moments. Jeff returning to TNA was a great moment, us winning, the Full Metal Mayhem match, the TLC match at Bound for Glory, which is the match we helped create and usher in to become a staple of pro wrestling. That was a big moment, So moments are everything, and that's what I really try and focus on now more than anything else, more than moves or moments.
Do you have like a list in your head of like, all right, this would be good. We've got TNA Genesis coming up. Man, this would be a really cool moment if we can figure out a way to make this work.
Yeah, I think this, once again, this reinvention that Jeff and I are wanting to get into, I think this can be real good. And I think it's something different. I think we can be extremely entertaining doing it. I think people will like understand it, and it's something that could be heavily entertaining so that casual fans may like it as well. It's important. It was very important, I feel like, because people want to see us succeed as the Hardy Boys, that we were the OG Hardy Boys through Bound for Glory. And now we've started tweaking things a little bit, even like calling ourselves the Goats, which that's typically the Hardys wouldn't do that, because they're humble guys,
Yeah.
But we're feeling what we're doing a little bit here. Maybe we transcend wrestling superstars.
What's your favorite Jeff Hardy match?
Ooh. One of my matches that really stand out, just because it was such a big deal for him at the time when it happened, I know it's one of his favorites as well, is when he wrestled The Undertaker in a ladder match. And I know Taker was taking a lot of pride. He wanted it to be good, and he wanted to make it into a great match. And that moment at the end where Jeff wouldn't stay down and he came back and he endorsed him, that was, once again, such a big moment. That's probably what pops in to most people's minds.
That and JR's call.
Yes. And also with
Climb
Jeff,
the ladder, make yourself famous.
Yeah. JR was great. Whenever Jeff won the world title, that was an amazing moment too. When he first did that in the match, the triple threat against Edge and Triple H.
And at that time, in 2008, you guys were white hot. Both had a championship at the same time.
Yeah, it was very cool. It was very cool that that show went off the air. I came out at the end of it, but I was out there as the ECW champ, and Jeff was the WWE World Champ. It was very cool.
And that's amazing considering the career you guys had together, and then the career you guys have had on your own too.
Yeah, and we both take a lot of pride in that. It's just it's amazing, man. Like Jeff is such a special guy, and I feel like the headspace he's in now, like the way his personal life is the best it's ever been. He's just really he's just an amazing human being who has everything in check. So I feel like he looks back and goes, God, I wonder what I would have done if I would have been like this the whole while. So
Wow.
So it's always intriguing.
There's no question the Hardy Boys are future Hall of Famers. Do you think that Matt and Jeff will also get inducted one day?
I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I definitely.
Like, I'll say it. Obviously, you guys have had Hall of Fame careers on your own.
Yeah. I mean, we want to go into a Hall of Fame wherever it is. I think
You'll be in many. You'll be in many Hall of Fames.
Yeah. We'll do that. But yeah, I think there is an argument to have us in a singles as well.
I think in the TNA Hall of Fame, it's just Team 3D's the only tag team in there right now.
I think, yeah.
You guys will be.
Yeah.
Whenever you decide to hang them up,
right?
Whenever that happens to be, I feel like it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, it will at some point, no doubt.
Did you ever think, though, at some point when you guys were just a tag team, that you'd be able to have the successful singles career that you had?
Our goal right from the jump was to be the World Tag Team Champions in one place. We want to either be the WWF World Tag Team Champions or the WCW Tag Team Champions. Just do it one time. And if we did anything past that, then it was all like extra credit, right? So we obviously exceeded our initial goal and aspiration many times over. I don't know if we really thought we'd be singles guys. I think there was a point where, as the Hardy Boys grew, 2002-ish, I think we did realize that, there's a capacity for us to both have pretty successful singles careers as well.
And look at the career you guys have had.
Yeah, it's been blessed, man. We've been very blessed.
Always so good to be able to sit with you, Matt. And I'll ask you the question, man, you were on the show about a year ago. Maybe your answers will be the same. Maybe they'll be different.
Right.
But gratitude's so important to me in my life. What are 3 things, Matt, that you're grateful for right now?
First and foremost, I am grateful for my children, my wife, my family. I'm grateful for my health. And I'm also very grateful that I am still able to live out my dream week in and week out as a pro wrestler. That was my passion. It's one of those things where, they say if you love a job so much, it's not really a job because you're going to work to do something you love. And that really rings true.
Yeah, you're doing it. Well, always good to see you, Matt.
You too, man. Thanks.
Thanks again.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's always great chatting with you. Chopping it up.
Chopping it up.
Yeah.